Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to Zwift. This is a fitness journey, and we're on the Cycling March Madness final episode. We have the Elite 8, the Final 4, and the Championship match, all three taking place, contained within this episode. So we are going to get our champion today. I'm really excited for that. But otherwise, this part, not actually so excited for today. First off, we're at Innsbruck Ring. For the course we're going to cover. It's a short one, and I'm planning on keeping it actually a relatively short ride because I'm going to suffer through this one. It's a survival ride, not anything much more than that. So if I can, I'll find a nice easy group to pace with, like these 2 or 3 riders right in front of me, and see if I can hang with them. A few reasons why. One, well, I've long since had a cold. Somebody in the daycare had a common cold, and I caught it. And the cold part I got over pretty quick, but I was still phlegmy, and it's gotten a little bit lower, hovering around my lungs, and it hasn't gone away yet. And just today, really not feeling all that well. But the bigger thing is I had 3 soccer games over the weekend. It's all indoor, and in one of them, the arena, I play at more than one location, the arena for that one, they don't manage the field well at all, and the artificial turf for years has been unkept, and I found myself, or you often find yourself, when you get near the walls, it's really slippery. The rubber pellets all kind of gravitate towards those walls, and they just accumulate there. And there's enough of them there that it's pretty easy to slip on them. Well, anyway, got near that wall, cleared a ball out, and slipped. Caught myself with my other foot, but came down really hard on it. Stayed on my feet, but so much force, so much weight to save that absorbed into my heel, and my right foot inside from mid-ankle down to the bottom of my foot is all purple, blue, yellow, green, lovely colors of the rainbow, as I'm quite bruised. The ankle itself's fine though, so I have mobility, but I have soreness, a lot of soreness down there. So yeah, that's how I'm doing right now. Anyway, what we're doing right now is we're going to get into those last 3 rounds of Cycling's March Madness. See you back in a little bit.
We open up the first of our 3-round extravaganza with the finalists of the current riders. It's a 5-10 matchup. Chris Froome versus Anna Vanderbreggen. Froome, 4-time winner of the Tour de France, including 7 stages. 2-time winner of La Vuelta, including 5 stages. And 1-time Giro d'Italia victor. 3-time Dauphiné winner, 46 career wins, 4 years in the top 10 of the rankings, versus Vanderbreggen, who is got 2 world championships, 3 Grand Tour victories in the Giro Rosa, 6 Flèche Wallonnes, 1 Olympic victory, 3 monuments, and 53 career wins. 2 years ranked at number 1 and 9 years running in the top 10. Now, in terms of that head-to-head, Vanderbreggen has a slight edge on total wins, does have an edge on monument victories, has the World Championships, where Froome does not, but definitely is behind on the Grand Tour side. When you compare those 2 things, overall, this is a pretty close matchup. This is definitely a close matchup. If you look at the rankings, Vanderbreggen has a definite edge over Froome, who's never really focused on where they are in the rankings. They've focused on those Grand Tour accolades. And Froome has been very successful with 7 Grand Tour victories. Of course, Vanderbreggen with 3. That's a pretty healthy gap. In that direct comparison, we're probably edging towards Froome anyway. However, I think this is where it's a fair discussion to bring in the women's peloton versus the men's peloton. Now, the reality of the situation is the women's peloton has drastically improved during this era, during this generation, in recent years. And that's a wonderful sign that that's going to continue trending in that direction in the time to come. Now, the difficulty, though, is that the women's Peloton just isn't where the men's Peloton as a whole is. The overall difficulty level of the races, the quality of the riders in the Peloton just does not compete. Yes, she is elite for the women's Peloton, but the women's Peloton in general is just not quite where the men's is. So that's going to push this even a little further. Like I said, it was probably already going towards Froome anyway. Froome into the Final Four. And our finals in the all-time great category brings the number 1 seed, Eddie Mercs, against Bernard Hinault. Hinault, the 6th seed. And let's see how they compare. Hinault with 5 Tour de France victories, including 28 stages, 3 Giro d'Italia victories, and 2 Vuelta a España victories. That's 10 Grand Tours. 4 monuments, 146 career wins, was ranked number 1 in 1981, and had 9 years in the top 10. Mercs, 5-time Tour de France winner, including 34 stages, 5-time Giro d'Italia winner, including 24 stages, 3 World Championships, 15 monuments, number 1 all-time ranking, and number 1 each year from 1968 to 1975. Utterly dominant. 10 Grand Tour victories compared to 10 Grand Tour victories. They are equal there. But in total number of stages, Mercs has a significant advantage in that department. Nearly 20 stages more than what Hinault has. 4 monuments for Hinault, but 15 for Mercs. That's plus 11. Also 3 World Championships where Hinault does not have that accolade. And then 1 year ranked number 1 versus all the way from 1968 to 1975. Utter dominance for Mercs. Hinault really puts up a nice challenge, especially matching the Grand Tour victories and matching the number of Tour de France victories. And as close as Hinault makes it, it's still comfortable for Eddie Mercs. Mercs into the Final Four. In our first 1-2 matchup, our regional final for the best challenges brings the Tour de France, including Mont Ventoux and Alpe d'Huez as stages, against the Giro d'Italia with Mont Zoncolan as one of the stages. Mont Ventoux, 16-kilometer climb at 7.5%, taking nearly an hour. In 2021, they're going to be climbing it twice. The Alpe d'Huez, 14 kilometers, 8%, better part of an hour as well. That 21 stages, not just France. They so often dip into neighboring nations, which adds to the spectacle of what it is they'll pick up 1, 2, or 3 stages elsewhere. It has the Alps. It has the Pyrenees. And in all, there are 7 total mountain ranges. And then, of course, the famous final stage, which they haven't done forever, but since they've introduced it, it's been absolutely fantastic. The Champs-Élysées versus the Giro d'Italia. Mont Zoncolan. It's only been climbed 6 times, but it's 13.5 kilometers, 9%. Very impressive climb. 103 editions of the Giro, 21 stages, same as the Tour. 2 time trials every time. The Alps, the Dolomites, it's certainly up there, but it's very much that localized Italian race. And as prestigious as it is, it's pretty far off from where the Tour de France is. The Tour de France elsewhere around the world is far more widely known. The Giro, totally unknown unless you're a fan of the sport. Same with the Vuelta. It's the reason why it got eliminated earlier as well. Tour de France is where the prestige is. It is where they venture into other nations. It's got multiple difficult climbs. Tour de France into the Final Four. And our final category for the Elite 8 is the best moments. Opening up with that 2018 Giro Stage 19 victory of Chris Froome. 4th place overall. Well down. He was 3.5 minutes down. Yates in the lead. 3 climbs before the end. Yates cracks, loses 40 minutes. Froome attacks, going the opposite direction, gets that breakaway. 80-kilometer solo ride to win the stage, win the pink jersey, the Finisterre, the Sestriere, I mean, these were the big climbs, huge victory. And yes, Yates had cracked. Guess who it was? It was Dumoulin, who had picked up the reins to chase him down. Couldn't do it. Froome flips that order. It was just a wonderful, wonderful individual stage. And Froome claims victory, not only on that stage, but in that tour as a result. Versus 3 seed, 2019, Amstel Gold, Mathieu van der Poel, goes in an early break, can't make it, falls back to the Peloton with riders up the road. And those riders up the road looked poised to win. Alaphilippe, Fuglsang, Kwiatkowski battling it out for the sprint victory. And then here comes Mathieu van der Poel, pulls single-handedly that Peloton along, shatters riders one by one by one by one, and then gets to that group of 3 at the front and outsprints everybody to claim victory. Beautiful, beautiful ride by Mathieu van der Poel. Absolutely one of the greatest classic rides ever. But it's a single stage with a single result. Froome's, that was a whole Grand Tour that impacted, that changed, that altered. And 80-kilometer solo ride. In the case of Van der Poel, you can criticize a few points. 2 in particular that we'll point out here. Van der Poel attacked and failed and fell back. Alaphilippe, Fuglsang, if they don't cat and mouse, and then with Kwiatkowski after he catches them, if those 3 don't cat and mouse that one, it's a clear, comfortable win for either the front 2 or any of the front 3. If they just ride on to the finish and then sprint it out, he doesn't claim victory. Mistakes were made. Now in the Froome's case, we can make that same point. If Simon Yates doesn't blow up, the outcome might be different. He might be involved in that chase. But that's also the beauty of this one. Instead of the Amstel Gold, which isn't even one of the 5 monuments, this is a Grand Tour victory. This is stage 19 of a 21-stage race with a monumental shift in that lengthy and prestigious race. Amstel Gold, less prestigious, one-day classic. So, Froome into the Final Four. That's not all for today, folks. We move into the Final Four, and we're going to have that championship round within this episode. So it's all happening here and now. One major difference from this point forward, it's no longer comparing apples to apples or oranges to oranges. We are now comparing the apples to the oranges, to the papaya. It's different fruits. It's going to get a lot harder to make judgments from here, but we only have to do so on 3 occasions, making life a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and get on to it. 5 seed from the current riders versus the 1 seed of the all-time greats. It's Chris Froome versus Eddie Mercs. All right, here's where Froome stands as the greatest of the current generation. 4-time Tour de France victor, 7 stages in all. 2-time Vuelta a España victor, and 1-time Giro d'Italia victor. 7 Grand Tours in his career is pretty impressive. 3-time Dauphiné winner and 46 career wins. Never once has he ranked number 1, though. I think we know where this one's going to be headed because it's a pretty simple comparison. Mercs, 10 Grand Tour victories, 3 World Championships, 15 monuments, and number 1 all-time ranking plus each year from 68 to 75. For Mercs, this is just about the easiest matchup he's had. Froome's not going to go down as one of the all-time greats. He could be in that argument. He could be one of the lower seeds in that category. 7 Grand Tour victories is impressive. Overall, though, not a ton of wins, not a lot of top rankings. He's been focused very heavily in his career on those Grand Tours. And as impressive as 7 is, and as high up that list that puts him, it's kind of where everything stops. It's what he's done, and there's his resume. Mercs did so much more. Mercs, on to the championship round. And our other Final Four, the Tour de France versus the 2018 Stage 19 Chris Froome Moment of Glory. Now, we just talked about both of these, so I don't need to recap them again. The Tour versus an individual ride. Now, when comparing these two things, it's the entire 21 stage and the Prestige and the Mont Ventoux and the Alpe d'Huez and the Champs-Élysées versus one amazing 80-kilometer effort. Which outshines the other? Individual glory, a single time, one day at the tour that just lost out to the Tour de France in the previous comparison. For me, that's a pretty easy decision. The Tour de France and all that it offers. It's a complete package where the Chris Froome stage was phenomenal. It was amazing. It was such a thing to watch. But it was one time, one moment in history. And one moment, I don't think can beat all the moments that you get of the tour. Especially if we start to try to add in the thought that it's every year. And we get to see it again. Where again, the Froome thing, one moment in time. Tour de France, into the finals. Who would have thought the Final Four would be so quick that comparing apples to oranges actually really isn't that hard? Well, let's see how difficult it is for the finals, because this is going to be an epic matchup. Number 1, all-time great rider versus the number 1 all-time best challenge. It's Eddie Mercs versus the Tour de France. Of course, Mercs, short summary, 10 Grand Tour victories, including that Tour de France 5 times. 3 World Championships, 15 monuments, that number 1 all-time ranking, utterly dominant, the favorite throughout, probably the winner on most brackets, versus the Tour de France. It's an entity. It's a thing. Yes, it's got the Mont Ventoux. Yes, it's got the Alpe d'Huez. Yes, it's 21 stages. It's also why most of us are here. Mercs isn't racing right now, but we're still talking about it. Why do we talk about it? Because we still have the Tour de France. It's the ever-present element. It's what has all the prestige. It's what Eddie Mercs had to conquer 5 times. And he did. He conquered it. Does that make him the victor because he conquered it? And he conquered it 5 times? Well, Froome conquered it too. Does that mean Froome would have beat the Tour de France? Others have conquered it as well. So it's been beaten. They've made the climbs. They made it to the end. Where do we go from here? They beat it. So does that mean they win automatically? That definitely comes down to where do you stand on the matter? Well, Mercs obviously, lots of wins, utterly dominant, the winningest rider of all time. He's got that part wrapped up, and he did conquer the tour, and he conquered it 5 times. Right? It's really hard to look past that. Plus all those other accolades. The tour didn't go and conquer all those other things. It's more prestigious than them. It beat them all out in those head-to-heads. But what does the Tour de France conquer? What does it accomplish? It brings us together. It creates the spectacle. Without the Tour de France, is the sport going to be what it is? Is it going to be as big as it is? Probably not. Probably not even close. It is the sport in the eyes of 90% of the audience. 10% go much further beyond that and know that there's so much more that the sport does have to offer. So that part, amazing. But to most, it's all down to the Tour de France. And then again, if we go out and poll people in the US or other countries around the world, now I do know that, like in, say, the Netherlands, in Holland, you're going to have a lot of people who know exactly who Eddie Merckx is. If you poll 100 people, plenty, are going to tell you who Eddie Merckx is. But in every case, each and every case, if you poll every last person in the world and you ask them about Eddie Merckx and you ask them about the Tour de France, the one that people are going to know more of is the Tour, not Merckx. And you know what it took Merckx to conquer the Tour? It took drugs. It took a lot of drugs for him and the others. That whole all-time great list, virtually all, nearly all, doped. They cheated. He cheated to get those wins. I think you might see where I'm headed with this. The prestige, the heart of the sport, is not Eddie Merckx, it's the Tour. The Tour de France is the heart of the sport of cycling. Merckx, and I think this is the decisive factor for me. He cheated in the sport. Now, yes, he was going up against others who were cheating as well, and I get that. But he didn't do it on his own. He did it with aid, with help. He beat the Tour not of his own merit, and that lessens the accomplishment. And so much of it comes down to the Tour itself. So for me, our champion in the first ever Cycling's March Madness is the Tour de France, the ultimate challenge.
Alright folks, that's going to do it for today's episode. Hope you liked the Cycling's March Madness series. Took a lot of time to set up, produce, do the episodes, edit, whatnot. But for me, it was at least a lot of fun I hope you enjoyed it as well, because I really like to do it again next year. I'm going to change up at least one of the regions for something else next time around, so I'm excited to have a second go. A few different riders in contention. Maybe redo the current rankings a little bit, not based on the UCI, but maybe based on some other factors, and go from there. We move back into regular Zwift episodes from here. Next time, we're going to do first big health check, see where I'm at, what kind of progress I've been making. A lot of you have noted that I'm definitely moving along a lot quicker. Even today where I was off the pace, not pushing as hard, I did so much better, and I hit a really tough climb there near the back stretch, and that climb, I flew up the first half at least, and I did slow down a bit for the second half, but it was a good climb, and I got through it in one piece. And yes, there was a descent after, and that's always good for recovery, but I did recover quite quickly, so I was impressed with myself on that, considering how I was taking the ride. And all in all, my foot's it's okay. It's sore, but it's okay. And looking forward to a bigger, stronger, faster ride for Wednesday. We'll see what that is, but I'm looking forward to that. That's Thursday for you, for the episodes. But that's going to do it for this one. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button. Also, if you have not done so yet, do please subscribe. It really helps boost the algorithm that little bit more to get my name out there. I've been doing this channel for a while now. It's been over 3 years, and still haven't had a big break, but it's grown steadily. So things are good. But I'd like to see that hit another level, and you can definitely help with that. Like, subscribe, comment for more. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.